Two times tapping in and holla at y'all. So check it. It's been a lot of recent news about Trump's crackdown on immigrant drivers, right? And all the different things that's been taking place in regards to, getting them off the road in different ways, right? Whether it be not approving any visas, or if you don't have a certain type of visa, you can't get a CDL to work in America. Whether it be, ICE and other authorities, at these weigh stations, running down on immigrant drivers, checking them for their citizenship. The different highway patrols or troopers, state troopers, pulling them over during the English proficiency test, right? Getting them off the truck that way. Just all different type of stuff, right? And on one hand, I get it, right? Because I've seen personally, especially with the English proficiency. Now, whether or not they say this is not, I don't know. But with that English proficiency, that's really an issue, right? I've seen several times, you got these big old signs posted: "Do not enter here." Trucks go down that way, right? And I don't know what they follow. Maybe the GPS is saying turn in here, turn in there, and they just not reading the signs, right? Or they can't read the signs. I don't know. But you see these big ass signs posted like, don't go this way, don't go that way, no trucks, and they still doing it, right? So clearly there's some type of issue with translation, right? Or understanding of the English language, right? So I get that part. Whether or not with the visas, if that's fair or not, or if that's right, I don't really know. If they got over here legally and they obtained a CDL, it is what it is, right? Now, on the flip side though, right? Like I say, I kind of agree, but I think they barking up, with this whole stuff, right? Trying to clean up the roads and make them more safe. I think they barking up the right tree, right? They barking up the right tree, but I really think they cutting at the wrong branch, if you get what I'm saying, right? Because you got to ask yourself, all right, well, okay, they on the road. Well, how did they get the license in the first place to get there? Right? And some people say, oh, well, the states is allowed, giving out these non-domicile driver's license, stuff like that. All right, you could look at that, right? But with a CDL being a federally regulated license, like states really shouldn't have the authority to decide who does who they, like, it's federally regulated. It's not regulated state by state, or it shouldn't be, because really we under federal laws, right? We got to follow federal laws. If not, if it was just state by state, I might smoke a little weed. I'm in California, you know what I'm saying? If we was just under state laws, I might smoke a little weed. I'm not gonna lie, right? But it's federal laws. It's not legal federally, so I ain't doing it, right? Nonetheless, right? I think they cut the wrong branch, right? Because you really gotta think it like, you gotta start with two places, right? One, right? The first place you gotta start is with the schools, right? Like, how are they? How are they being taught in school? You know what I'm saying? What information, and how is the information being conveyed to them? Is the information being conveyed to them in English? Are they being taught in English? Are they learning in English? Right? You gotta think about that, right? And I'll tell you this, right? I'm gonna say no. They're not even being taught in English to begin with. Let alone having to take the test or to speak English to drive the truck. They're not even being taught English, which I think should be a requirement, right? with these schools should be looked into and be like, okay, are the instructors English speaking instructors, right? Are they teaching these classes in the English language? Because you could solve a lot of stuff just right there, right? Be like, okay, well, you know, if you go to a school and everything has been taught in English and you can't understand English, you can't pass, right? Hell, you can't even get into the school because you don't understand the application that you got to fill out to even go to the school, right? Because you don't understand English. You get what I'm saying? So if they start there, right, they cut out a lot of this stuff, right? To where, you know, they ain't got to be outside just pulling up, harassing people, pulling people over just because they look a certain way, doing all that nonsense, right? Start with the schools. Go there first, audit these schools, see how they're teaching and how they're instructing these students, right? Are they using the English language, right? So you can start there. And I'll tell you this, right? I don't think, you know, it might be a lot of them are, but I know for sure it's some that's not, right? And I'm gonna tell you how I know, right? Because so at one point, right, when I was in management, right, mind you, the company I was in management for, right, it was a beverage company, but this was like the lowest paying company in that sector of the industry, right? So you can imagine it was hard to obtain and maintain drivers, right? We found a way because we made the environment, you know, a real welcoming environment, right? But nonetheless, right, it was hard to get, you know, people to come and people to stay, right? Because of the pay. So, you know, I had the bright idea. I was like, man, you know, hell, let's go to some of these schools because, you know, the company I was working for, we were hiring people with no experience. So if you were straight out of school, you could come through. You know, as a matter of fact, I said in a previous video, hell, I started there straight out of driving school, right? So, you know, years later, we still taking them fresh out of school, but we wasn't getting no hits, right? But we needed to up our head count, right? So, let's go visit some of these schools, right? And we went to maybe 3 schools. You know, gave our business cards, like, hey, we're hiring drivers fresh out of school. They can apply now, pending they get their license, right? They can get hired. I forgot the term, but you can get hired pending that you're gonna get your license, right? And when you get your license, come on, we got a job for you. You know what I'm saying? So we was doing that, and we ended up at this one school, and I say, man, like the people we were talking to barely spoke English, and they were the people running the school. They barely spoke any English. Like we having a hard time having this conversation about, hey, we're here. They was like, what y'all here for? We trying to tell them like, hey, we work for this company. You know, we the managers or whatever, and we hire people fresh out of school. Like, hey, here go a car, you can call. And they was looking skeptical because they didn't much speak English, so they probably knew it. And I gotta keep it 100, right? At this time, because this was years ago, but at this time, I didn't know that you had to speak English to get your CDLs. I had no idea, right? Because hell, when I got into the industry, it was a lot of people who barely spoke English. You get what I'm saying? So I'm like, you know, I thought it was free for all, right? Here we are all these years later, like, man, that's been a law since the beginning of time. But you know, you got these schools with non-speaking instructors, non-English speaking instructors teaching these classes. So of course they're not really, you know who they teaching. You know what I mean? You know, right? So I know that's a thing. You know what I mean? So if they start at that level, audit the schools first, right? Before you get to harassing people on the road who already got their license, all that stuff, just audit the schools, right? Ensure that there's no more coming out, right? Because yeah, with all this stuff going on, you might deter or scare a few people to be like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna go get my class A. But there's gonna be some people that's gonna be like, man, what's up? I'm still going. I know what's going on out there. I'm gonna take my chances, right? So if you just want to alleviate even people taking chances of like seeing if they can get their CDL, without being able to speak English and all that stuff. Audit the schools. You know what I mean? Audit the instructors, right? That's when you know what's a good school, what's a not so good school. You know what I'm saying? What schools need to get shut down? What schools might need to get some extra little funding? You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So they can update student count, right, for all the other ones that you're about to shut down for not being able to teach or instruct in English, right? So you start there and solve a lot of problems, right? The next thing, right? Now they got to go to the DMV, right? Now you got to go to the DMV. Not only are you supposed to be able to take the written test in English, right? When you get into the truck to do your driving test, right? When you get into the truck to do your driving test, you supposed to be able to communicate with the tester. The tester is speaking English, should be, right? Should be the only language that the tester is speaking is English, right? Because I remember during the process of getting my license and taking a test, you had to call out certain signs. You had to know what these signs said. Now, unless they was instruct them in school, like, hey, this sign says this and you know what I mean? So their ability to speak English was limited to the signs that they told them, hey, make sure you read this, make sure you read that, right? But then even if that was the case, right? Let's just say even if that was the case, that in the schools they were teaching them to specifically just read the signs. Okay, cool, you don't understand English, know these signs. They not even, they still get on the road and not being able to understand the signs, right? So here he is, you at the DMV taking your test. You're supposed to call out these signs. You know what I mean? The speed limit, the clearance, right? Hey, the instructor might let, hey, two blocks back, man. What was that sign? What did that sign say? Yeah, no left turns after a certain amount of time. After a certain, stuff like that, right? This is what I remember, right? They would quiz you. You know what I mean? 2x's back. What was the clearance on that? 2x's back. You got to know these things, right? So what we was instructed to do was every sign we pass, right? Call it out. All right, clearance this. That sign, no this turn, right? You just calling out signs, just so don't even ask me. I'm about to tell you right now, right? Don't get up. Don't 2 miles away. You talking about what that said way back there. I'm just about to call them all out, right? So clearly, even at the DMV, the testers aren't even doing their job, right? As it pertains to making sure that the person that they're testing, because along with skills and all that stuff, do they speak English? Right? Ask them to read a street sign. Anything, what the billboards say. Anything, right? That should be a part of the testing. You know what I mean? And I know that, there was an issue at a lot of these DMVs, where they had some little inside thing going on, man, and it was just passing people, right? But that's not everywhere, right? That's not everybody. You know what I mean? So as far as the tester and even the people that's over the testers, like strictly English speaking, and I know it may come across like, man, that's kind of, that's bias, that's that's discrimination. Like, not when it comes to this. If this is the federal law, why would you leave it to chance, right, to put a tester in that seat who speaks a different language, right? Because a lot of times, right, let's just say whatever language I speak, right? Let's say I speak Swahili, right? If somebody get in this seat, right, that I'm testing, and they speak Swahili, they speak my native tongue, and they start talking in Swahili, I'm gonna forget all about English. I'm gonna forget all about it, right? Because the native tongue gives comfort. So if you tested somebody and they get up in your truck and y'all going to go test, and they start speaking your native tongue, man, you're not even tripping off the fact that, man, they not even speaking English. Right? You're not even, because it's the comfort thing. The comfort kicks in of your native tongue. Right? Y'all might start talking about places back home and, hey, where your people from? Y'all talking about everything but the truck driving in the test. You know what I'm saying? Where your people are, oh, you know what I mean? Where y'all live at, where you go to church, whatever, right? You talk about everything but the task at hand, which is, right, your skills and do you speak English? Can you understand these signs when you're out here on the road? You know what I mean? And so, you know, that's just a different angle as opposed to, you know what I mean? Let's just be running up on people while they driving. You know, you got people out here all nervous. You know what I mean? Hey, if they got their CDL, bro, don't make them nervous. You know what I mean? They start making mistakes and shit like that. You know what I mean? They start trying to find ways to get around you because they scared, even if they is on the up and up, they scared that they gonna mess around and lose their license. So now they taking back roads, they avoiding way stations. Oh, they doing all kind of stuff, man, just to not get hit up. You know what I mean? Because you're making them nervous, man. So quit running up on people while they out here on the road. Go to the schools, right? Audit them, make sure they teach the English, right? And then go to the DMV. And, you know, I'm not saying, man, come on for discrimination. Hey, man, but if you speak anything other than English, you probably shouldn't be testing people, right? Or, right? Hey, if you Indian and the Indian coming for a test, you can't get a test. You know what I mean? How the African dude test the Indian? You know what I mean? How the Asian chick test the Hispanic? You know what I mean? Like, you got to mix this thing up, man. You can't be putting people up in there with a tester and a testee. You know what I mean? They come from the same place. They got the same native tongue because that's what they going to start speaking. That's what's going to happen. You know what I mean? So, like I say, man, you know, it's other ways to go about this, making the roads a little safer other than running up on people, got drivers all nervous and stuff, man. You know what I mean? So, anyways, man, take it for what it is. You know what I mean? Share, like, subscribe. You know what I mean? Y'all stay safe out there.